everybody, it's Robert Dunt from ArtTop10.com, and I'm very pleased this afternoon to be chatting with Joanna Whittle. Hello, Joanna.
Hello.
Yeah, lovely. So, let's kick it off. Do you just want to show me one of your paintings to start with?
Yeah, let me get this one.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Um,
Nice. Yeah, hold it
right.
nice and still and nice and close, and then we can see it. So it's really cool.
Right,
Now,
how about that?
Yeah, oh, that's brilliant. That's really cool. Now, I have just realised that I've seen these on Instagram before, which is absolutely fascinating. Actually, how are they painted, or are they in pasto? I can't quite tell from here if they're thick or very, very thinly painted.
They're mixing with both. They're layered actually. So I start kind of really old mastery actually with the ground, and then I work up and a layer and a layer. So
Okay.
they have a realism, but they're hello.
Oh yeah, I'm here.
You still hear me?
I'm still here. Yep.
They have a layering really. They're quite heavily layered.
Okay.
And then they kind of have all their highlights at the end. So
okay.
So yeah, a bit both. They're quite textural when you see them, like some of them in the foreground.
I get the feeling they are. Get the feeling like the white, well, the sort of grey white. Well, what actually is in the image? That's an image of a.
It's what are they called? They're called a swing, a whirler swing or something. They're kind of. There was one in Sheffield. I'm based in Sheffield. They go up and then they spin round, and then there's all these swings spin round, and they're really crazy. It doesn't have the springs on it. I'm kind of really interested in it as a piece of machinery, because if you look, there's all these tiny little pictures within the picture. Little scenes. It's a really beautiful piece of equipment. So really fascinated by it. It took a long time. And then what I do with the work, I tend to, I kind of paint structures, and then I kind of go over them and verdigris them and put weed on them. This one's really weird actually, because I was making it just before lockdown actually. So I was in the studio working late at night, and it was getting quieter and weirder outside. So the painting was just getting weirder and weirder. It was kind of apocalyptic or War of the Worldsy, so I think it has that kind of War of the Worlds feel. It's sci-fi.
No, I mean it's got quite a sort of ominous presence. Would you say to it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's pretty creepy, and I think that time was quite creepy. No one knew what was going on, and I think a lot of my paintings do have an ominous undertone. They're kind of either mystical or ominous.
Yeah.
And there's kind of things like that. So I think there's lots of. They're never just as they are, and because they're made up quite a lot, they're invented.
Okay.
They're not just clear depictions. There is source material from photographs I take, but they're kind of mixed up and made up, so they have a strange feeling anyway.
So
that's in my mind. Bit worrying.
That's quite interesting. So as you go on, the source material changes, does it, and becomes more?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So this piece of machinery was in Sheffield town centre, in front of John Lewis.
Okay.
So it's kind of, I kind of take things out of context and move them to different scenes.
Okay.
They're kind of composite images.
I see. That's quite, because it would be a kind of fun thing for children to play on, really, would it?
Well, it would. But like when I was listening to it, because I watched it for ages, people were really frightened. It wasn't fun. No one was having fun. People kept shoving their children with it, and it was actually quite horrific.
What were they doing? Just spinning around, screaming?
Horror film screams.
I love it. So you've tapped into the real quality of the film.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And you've transported it into a sort of slightly disturbing swamp area, would it be?
Yeah, a kind of swampy marsh. It's quite different from my work actually, because usually there's a kind of receding of trees, and they're getting more and more claustrophobic over the last sort of few months. So maybe that's, I don't know what that is actually, but I think lockdown has contributed in some way.
Yeah.
But usually there's a kind of receding sky, and also they're usually all landscape formats. So this is first portrait one I've done for a while.
Right, why don't you show us another one? Show us another one while we're
in Let me see this one.
Yeah.
This is a kind of tent.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it's not really a tent. It's a kind of. Is that at the right angle? Can you see that?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
It's kind of tent structure, but it's more like a kind of cobbled shelter, really.
Okay.
My work was known for done quite a few circus tents and things like that. I haven't got any to show you because I don't have any left at the moment. Need to paint some more.
Don't complain about that.
But yeah, I'm not complaining. But yeah, I'm sort of. I think there's a real interest in fabric.
The fabric's beautiful.
And what fabric means. So there's partly the tents and there's the concealment, and what's going on inside. Is anything going on inside? Okay. There's so many different structures and functions of tents, and I think there's something kind of magical in a creepy way. But it's the folds of fabric. There's something odd about fabric as well. And when you find fabric in a natural space, you've got landscape and then something fabric appears. It's a kind of bit surreal, really, and that kind of shock to the senses, I find. And again, because I overwork them and overgrow them, so they look like they've been there a long time, but they're fragile structures. So how long realistically would they have lasted? So it's kind of playing with time, really, and they're kind of like ruins. So like a castle or a folly, but it's using these really fragile structures in the same way as a ruin, really, and that makes them very temporary and very fragile. And I think a lot of them have water. So they're going to sink, probably.
That's quite weird, isn't it? Because I agree. When I've seen them before, because I have seen some of the circus tent ones before on Instagram. The water's quite strange because I hadn't thought about it before, but it's almost like they couldn't really be there. Those structures wouldn't survive on top of that water, would they?
They wouldn't, and I'll tell you in a minute, but it's kind of that movement as well. So it's like, are they going to go in, or is the water drying? It could be that point. Either way, but I originally started doing them when I was working at festivals, volunteering, getting free, and and it Glastonbury, and you have these just a sea of mud or water, and then you have these tents, and they are these little islands of surviving, and they do survive. But I just found them so fascinating that it was just kind of obliterated chaos, and then these little islands, and also when you work at festivals, you're there before everyone else is, when they're setting up and things like that. So they're completely empty, and then you have these strange structures, sort of tents and other kind of playground equipment and things kind of appearing overnight, and it's sort of dark and creepy and strange.
Here, you can put it down now. You don't have to keep holding it. It's probably a nightmare to cling onto it all the time.
No, it's good. I've got
No, it's really cool. You've got a lovely way of painting the material. It looks quite solid in the picture. It looks quite solid.
I think I think of things very structurally. I think as well. I think I kind of paint things very realistically, but not realistically in a way that a painter wants to make something look realistic, but in a way of thinking about it as itself, as a structure, kind of like an engineer rather than a painting. How does that hold up and how does that work? It's a constant idea of how does that work. And more and more, because I invent more now, I have to really think about it because a lot of it's coming out of my head, and make some real blunders like that wouldn't stand up. It would just fall over if it was real. So you end up thinking like an engineer and adding little props to make it stand up.
So are you quite attracted to that? I mean, it sounds like you like the machinery, you like the engineering, you like the physicality of these things, do you?
Yeah, I am. I think I've always liked that. I know when I was a kid, I used to go to Alton Towers once a year because my dad was from Stoke, so we're up that way, and never went on any rides. I just like looking at them. I'm too scared, apart from the log ride, which was really good, and the rapids. And it's just that really like the machinery and the kind of it's just so creepy as well, the way it moves. In weird ways, and there's something really odd about it. And then there's kind of, I think it's the idea of the temporariness, and fairgrounds and things being temporary, and these worlds emerging and re-emerging and submerging, and facades. I do a lot of arches and things, so entrances, gateways, into places, but they're just a flat surface. They're not authentic. So I kind of like that, the artifice of that.
So it was when you were working at the festivals that you began this kind of tents and water series?
Yeah, I think that's what it started, because kind of before, like, my paintings were they were ruins again, and that kind of dereliction, but they were kind of brown, everything was brown and grey. And then you have when you have tents and things. This is a really old one.
So is that a real place, or is that a fictitious one?
Again, this is made up. That's a bottle oven from Stoke. But then it's all kind of made up. I just make them up, mix them.
It's weird.
Kind of a lot of wasteland stuff, and they're a lot more rich in kind of nature now. A lot more trees and a lot more kind of velvety growth. The early stuff was bricks. The kind of khaki. I call it my khaki phase. The khaki period, which lasted a very long time. But then when I started to see the tent, it was a really nice way of bringing colour into the painting, and it was just so amazing to use blue. My first paint was in John Moore's, actually, and it was just really bright blue, and then it was all mud and khaki, and it was beautiful blue tent, and it was just the contrast of that as well.
That's really cool. And so why so small?
I think there's something really strange about you kind of going in and in to a world, and it kind of, you have more control. There's something more kind of sinister about small things as well.
There is something sinister.
And you're kind of going into a world. I used to do really big paintings, sort of 5 foot by 6 foot landscapes with a bodily, and it felt the idea that you were in the landscape, but it didn't really work because it's still really pictorial. So I think actually the smaller the scale, the more you are in the landscape, because you're using more imagination and focus, imagining yourself into this place. So they're a lot more. They have a lot more effect on your senses, I think, and a lot of imagination.
They become a bit more like fragile, extraordinary objects when they get smaller. Do you think?
Yeah, and I love packaging them, having them, carrying them in my pocket, and like Polly Pocket, but with painting. And there's something really nice about that portableness. But actually, it's there's something to do with that brush mark as well. That very, very fine point, and putting in those fine details, which is just really, it's kind of magical when it works. And you're putting in tiny little bits of highlight and detail. It's a kind of myriad of layers, and you're starting with the landscape and then going down to this tiny, finite detail. Something really addictive about it, I think.
And so, do you make them all just there on the desk with the little easel area?
And this little workstation here, that's it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what? So that's a painting that's just beginning, is it, at the moment?
Yeah. So nice. I love the underpainting. It's really fun because I use these massive brushes.
Oh, really? So huge. Tiny picture. I love it.
But it's lovely to work that, and you can see my grounds are really bright.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of reds and pinks and peaches, kind of gold colours, and they come through at the end. It's like that one. A lot of the gold in the sky was from the original underpainting.
Oh, right. Nice. I like that. If you can keep the underpainting there.
So it comes through. I mean, I put a bit of glaze on that one as well, but there's always highlights in here, sort of around the tops of the tent. That still has some pink coming through.
Okay.
So they're it's all underpainting, really.
So let me just.
So that's what I really like about the layers coming through. That's why they're so layered.
That's really. So what have you got on the left? But what's below the picture? Is that just something to prop it up?
Yeah. A paint box.
It's just a paint box. That's what I was saying. I was just trying to work out. You can't understand. And then on the left-hand side, you've got like a little, not an iPad, but an iPad thing.
Yeah, no, definitely not an iPad. Just a little tablet. So I have a lot of images, and I'm always swapping between images. You know, I might be using 3 or 4 photographs for one painting.
It's quite interesting.
And then I can zoom in, and that's the thing. It's different because you know, you're working from photographs old school. You can see what you can see, but being able to zoom into a photograph and getting more and more into detail, it doesn't work anymore. You know, you've suddenly got that way of thinking about landscape where you can see something that would be far away in the scene. You can actually see right into.
It's really interesting, actually.
Digital media.
It's a really interesting thing about how artists use technology, because it's interesting to think that you're using that. It allows you to flip through the images, zoom into the images. It's quite an interesting thing you couldn't have done 10 years ago or whatever.
No, and I don't know whether I've got it. Well, I do have it. I have my essential piece of equipment.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm really going to humiliate myself doing this, but this is it.
Oh, man.
This is the beast.
I love it.
It leaves a big red thumbprint on my forehead. It looks like I've been touched by the beast by the time I go home. It's again to kind of hone in.
Check it out. And what that magnifies up? It's like a magnifying glass thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I use different lenses depending on what I'm doing.
Oh, really?
I'm like a watchmaker.
That is so cool. So you actually zoom in more and more and more as needed.
Yeah, and I have done it. I did some paintings, and they were this scale.
Yeah.
And I got more and more into it, and I had different magnifiers, and it came to the point where you couldn't see it. So just on a wall, as a viewer, you couldn't see the painting. You know, the detail was too small. I was like, well, that's conceptually interesting, but it's not really working. You know,
did you have to like
unless everyone had to have little, you know, the classes.
Yeah.
Might be interesting. Yeah. That was a different angle.
So when you're making these things, you're literally in your own world, deep inside it.
Yeah, very much so. And I've got my headphones on, and I'm there. Really interestingly, what I listen to is I listen to true crime all the time. So it's really odd to have that kind of narrative of like horrible murders, and they found the body in a ditch, and then, you know, painting landscape. But I think there's something about that it occupies my mind, so I can kind of zone out, and the paintings are really zoned out place. But I'm sure it's having some effect, and I can look at some paintings that I've done, and I'm like, oh, when I was painting that bit of the roof, that's when they found that guy who killed that person. Yeah, I can relate. Dark,
yeah. Well, I guess that bleeds into the darkness in them a bit, doesn't it?
I would say so. Yeah, definitely. But I really find that aspect quite interesting of how you're making work and the different things. It's like if I listen to music, that would be really distracting, because I like the music and you're dealing with two creative things vibrating on the same level. You know, music, you know, taking that creativity that I'm needing for the painting.
It's quite interesting. And you can just show us your palette as well, because that looks cool.
Well, I have these little terror palettes. I don't. I used to have a palette, but I'm just too lazy. Not lazy, but you know, at the end of the day, I never clean my palette, so I have those little tear off ones.
How many palettes have I had to throw away because I don't clean them up at the end of the day, and then they're just covered with stuff? Yeah.
I always used to be really envious of people, and they had a really nice piece of glass and a nice white bit of paper, and they'd scrape it all clean at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I've just got this pile of bits of white MDF because I keep forgetting to scrape it off, and then they've all got paint stuck on them.
It's terribly wasteful. But I did arranged my paints the other day.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
Which I haven't done for, I'd say, 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So they're all in a really nice spectrum now.
They look beautiful. And what's that? Is that a painting in the back of the box?
Do you know, it's the sweetest thing. I used to kind of live in London and work at an oncology centre in Archway, and there was a lady there that was really sad that I was leaving, and her mum was an artist, who had died. So she gave me her paint box with that picture in that she was working on.
Oh man, that's
for her painting that she was painting when she died, so I kept it there forever.
Man, that's quite.
It's just sweet.
Yeah, it is. It is quite amazing. So go on. Are there any other pictures you'd like to show me?
Let's trying to think when I'm doing. So where these are the kind of the idea of the arches again. I've got this as a drawing. I'm kind of really interested in framing as well.
Wait, is that your drawing?
That's a drawing for this painting.
Interesting.
A preparatory sketch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of really interested in, in silly things like that, little plaques and
interesting.
Which is the whole idea of the fairground stuff again, and the facade. I will be doing a project on that after the one. I'm manhandling that painting. And I like this. This is my favourite thing.
That's really cool.
Little brush. And this. So I've been doing some miniatures because I'm working on this project with the Harley Gallery at Workshop.
Okay.
And they have a lot of miniatures. It's a Arts Council funded developing creative practice that I got before coronavirus and lockdown and all of that stuff. So they have a collection of miniatures, but also really interesting landscape and underground tunnels and things like that. But this is tiny little miniature I've been working on, and that's
really cool.
Again, it's kind of made up. It's from the statuary. The word I've been using a lot. Statuary. Kind of all their statues and urns and things like that. There's another one here which is probably easier to see.
Yeah, that's it. Oh wow, that's cool. I like the pinky vibe in the background.
Yeah, and that's underpainting again. You see, it kind of glows through.
So, what grade magnifying glass do you have to have for those ones?
I don't know. It's one that if I kind of stand up, I feel really sick because it makes me go, woo. Or even look at my palette, I'm like flipping it up all the time. Very active. I'm like an action painter.
So where do you find the thing the painting's in? Where do you get that from? The little.
Just sort of root around on eBay, really.
Okay.
And then sort of cut things to fit and yeah.
So tell me about the project, the Arts Council one with these.
It's called Between Islands, and it's funded. The Harley Gallery it's a sort of gallery, has a sort of regular exhibitions, and then it has a collection called the Portland Collection, where the people who lived on the Welbeck estate, which is where it is, collected loads and loads of different items. So it's really about collecting and what that means, kind of in terms of artifice and creating scenes, and that kind of goes with my work because there's a lot of artifice and tomfoolery, skullduggery. So it's like about creating narratives. So I was doing that. So I got funding to do that, and I was sort of collaborating with another artist called David Orme, sort of thinking about the display and thinking how things are framed or presented as kind of museum collections. So the paintings are kind of this world, which is this is one of them. So there's things like this. This arch in the background is kind of something from the grounds of the Harley. It's from old photographs and things of these funny fireplaces and arches. So there's kind of elements that are mixed in. I did ceramics as well, actually.
Seriously?
So I've been making these kind of really ugly, big urn things.
That is so bizarre. That is so different to the painting.
It's really strange, isn't it? The ceramics are strange. It took me a long time to try and understand the language of ceramics.
So what led you? Did you do the ceramics first or the paintings first? Which?
Paintings, really. I've always been a painter. I sort of did painting at Royal College, and I've always painted. But so my dad was from Stoke-on-Trent. So ceramics were always part of my life. My nan would always have different figurines and all of that stuff. But and he died, so then I kind of wanted to do something to grieve or be closer. So I trained doing some ceramics, just an evening course. And then I've sort of done. Some of them are very fine, really fine drawings. So they're kind of like kind kind of whiteware, it's called, creamware, which were traditional kind of cream things with sort of beautiful black and white drawings or transfer prints. They were actually, but mine are hand drawn.
Okay.
I don't think I've got any. I'll have a look. I might do it in a minute. So yeah, it was just that. But this project, I think they're just getting more and more ugly, which is what I really like. And trying to understand that they're completely different languages and not translating just what I do in painting to what I do in ceramic.
They're so unbelievably different because they're like quite rough, abstract sort of things with I mean, the paintings look like they've got little fine brushstrokes, but this is much more like chunky finger movements.
Yeah, big old ugly old thing. I mean, a lot of them do have fine drawings on, but I don't think I've got any. See, it's nice having tiny paintings because you can go through boxes and find tiny paintings. You never know what's in them. Well, that's one of my ceramic packs. So that's what I started doing. So they're kind of like, again, like creamware. So there's black and white drawings, that thing. With a bit of that gold leaf as well.
Oh man!
But I've started using gold lusters as well, which is actually liquid gold.
Really? That's cool.
Which is really exciting. So it's just, I think at the time, it kind of helped me to. Some of the elements that I wanted to deal with in the paintings, I didn't necessarily need to be dealt with in the paintings. And then the ceramics are really kind of a different language, and they're kind of more humorous, a lot of them, or referring to different things. So they kind of help make the painting purer in a way.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is it's a strange business. I'm not quite sure I've got to the bottom of it yet as to why I'm doing it. But I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually really interesting. Yeah. But what are all those? All the little. Can't resist wondering what the pictures are behind you. Are they little drawings or watercolor on the wall? On the wall.
Oh, here. Yeah, I do a lot of drawing. Drawings are again really quick. I just sort of tend to shove things on the wall so they remind me. So just sketches for paintings.
Oh, cool.
Exhibitions. That's a gateway at the Harley Gallery.
That gateway's really cool. That's a really nice drawing. It's supposed to be paint as well, mustn't it? But it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, they're really nice because they're so quick. You know, the paintings are so time-consuming and long. Yeah. And then you've got the drawings, which I can do quick. Right. You know, different paces, really. Yeah. That's a tangerine that was left here before lockdown. That's a record of time passed.
I love the tangerine.
I'm trying to think if there's any more paintings. Well, there's a sort of interest in islands as well. But this is my first kind of really made up piece.
That's quite a lot larger than the others, isn't it?
Yeah, that's before I went really small. It was kind of transitional.
Yeah.
And so that's Ilham Rock, which is the Dovedale, and it's a kind of bit juts out the side of a cliff. So I turned it into an island.
That's really cool, actually.
So that's when I first started getting a bit more fantastical about things. Yeah. Before that, everything was really based in reality. You know, I'd go out and get my photographs and then just work from that source material without mucking about too much. So.
That's absolutely fascinating. I'm really enjoying the. You know what? I just love that. Like you say, the craziness, the little pictures. Stick them in a pocket, take it anywhere, wander around. You have a little exhibition in your rucksack.
Exactly. I mean, that's the only reason behind it. Well, I've got another little miniature. Again, that's what I'm working on.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that. What's in the image?
Tree.
What's in the image?
So there's a tree. So we stop at the Harley. So the Harley Gallery is also kind of based within Sherwood Forest.
Okay.
And they have all these really, really ancient oaks, really ancient trees. The Sherwood oak, the major oak, hundreds and hundreds of years old. And they're all kind of propped up. They're propped up with sticks and stuff to stop them from.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Those things falling down and this one had a hole cut in it, I think. So they This is from an old photo. This doesn't exist anymore, this one.
Okay.
So it was really propped up, stuck together, and I kind of added more fabric because I'm into fabric.
And then you've added a
kind of
bit
like doing Christo, but in in miniature painting.
And then you've added a bit of water and swamp in the bottom, by the look of it.
Yeah, the classic. Well, as well, when I started working with the Harley, because this is a really old start. I started this right at the beginning of the project last year.
Yeah.
Well, I started doing research. The project didn't start for this year, but it was flooded. It was flooded the whole time, and I couldn't get to anywhere because
Really?
it just kept flooding.
Oh wow.
So it was really wet time of year because it was a really floody time of year, and it's because it's sort of Nottinghamshire.
Yeah.
It sort of dips down a bit, and it was really floody. So that was perfect for me.
Yeah.
Miniatures, flooding, trees, fabric.
So it was silly, but I'd love to see your brushes. Can we see the brushes? Because are they all like teeny tiny, ready for the teeny tiny experience?
Well, every now and then I use one like this. That's a whopper.
That's the whopper. Oh, okay. They're not that small. They're not that small.
It's like I think it's an 0010.
Okay.
What I do though, I will get them, and once they're like that, and then I'll get one little hair that sticks out. I start plucking them, so eventually they're kind of left with one.
Yeah, no. I mean, I use I have the same thing. I just start snipping it off with scissors because
I get that, but then they get a bit bushy. It's really tight with tweezers, and then they're much neater.
Oh well, the brushes I've got are probably a bit bigger, so it's
grooming.
Okay. You can get away with the scissors, but exactly. But what can you do? Yeah. And what medium do you use, or a variety?
It's oil.
It's oil.
So the large paintings, huge paintings, are oil on canvas. I use a really nice fixed topic primer that's really smooth and lovely. Because I used to use loads. I used to do about 10 layers of acrylic primer or something, and sanding it and making it smoother and smoother. But just seemed to kill my colours like really badly. And then I got fixed topic, and it's sort of really nice, highly recommended. So yeah, just oil. But then there's the smaller ones. Let's see, I've got one here. Yeah. Look, just lying face down. It is covered. So that's, I actually paint on perspex for this size. Copper.
Move it a little bit to. It's not quite in the centre of the screen. That's it. That's better. A bit further.
Yeah, so that's the kind of perspex. Oil on perspex, and that's really nice painting on perspex. The only thing I can't paint on is MDF. It just really
it sucks it in.
Sort of dies.
Yeah.
It dies. So yeah, that's perspex. I do have copper.
Oh yeah.
That's also really nice. It looks like a postcard.
Oh wow! Look at that. That's cool.
Just stuck in this blue tack. I get really stuck when I leave the blue tack on. So yeah, you're working on this beautiful masterpiece stuck in a blue tack. So that's a copper one.
Oh wow, that is amazing.
They're really different. So I kind of think of the canvas ones as quite textural, the big textural things, and these tiny little copper ones is
the copper gives a really
really detailed.
Yeah, it gives a really extraordinary feeling to the copper. It's quite extraordinary. Amazing. That's got a really ominous. I know it's probably an awful thing. So I keep getting a sort of Stephen King vibe off it sometimes.
Well, I think it is. I think there's something a bit. It's a fine line. They're a bit hammy. They can't. You're sort of treading that dangerous balance between like, ooh, it's scary, and beauty, and all of those kind of dialogues. Kind of intrinsically, they're mostly about beauty. I think beauty and that kind of really easy way that it flips, flip-flaps. And strange undertones, but yeah, they do really kind of fly close to the edge on there. Horror film gore kind of thing. War of the World.
Yeah, I think it's funny because that Stephen King thing. It's often his horror is often about places that are sort of imbued, or cars, or it's got that quality of place to it.
Yeah, I think so, and I think the landscape is so present. They're really about landscape, and they're about landscape painting. And it is so present. and so much a part of everyone's psychology and memory and how you feel exactly right now, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
And I kind of in accessibility, things, my paintings become really fantastical, and especially in lockdown, and I wasn't able to get to the studio, so I was painting at home, and just everything was so inaccessible, and then they just became weirder because of that reason. They just became more fantastical, like no reality left. Quite interesting.
No, Joanna, I've loved chatting. We should probably, I could chat for ages, but we should probably try and keep it reasonably well, somewhere under an hour. I don't want to get a bit carried away. But I've loved seeing the pictures. They're really, really interesting, and I hadn't realised when we started that I'd actually seen them before on Instagram. But it's fascinating to see them in real life. Well, as real as we can.
As real as it is. But I think the scale's interesting. It's really funny taking pictures of them, and then you're looking at pictures of your painting on a computer screen that's like 3 times the size of the actual painting, and then it's really funny.
No, it's really cool, and it's been a real pleasure to go into the studio as well, because it's a real insight into what you do. And I imagine you could go into that studio and dig around and just find all these extraordinary things.
I do, and I find paintings that I forgot about, and it's really nice. I'm like, oh wow, I forgot about him, and they're nice, and stuff you've forgotten that you've done, really. Gem.
Anyway, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant. I've loved chatting. So
nice to talk to you.
Look forward to seeing you in real life. Cheerio. Bye.
Yeah.
Bumbuckler.